Alright, so in the last video we added effects. We played around with the tension and energy of the track. And I mentioned that we're gonna mix it down. Now, I know this is a course on structure and arrangement and not mixing, but a lot of you have asked for a track walkthrough of sorts. So that's pretty much what we're doing here, and mixing down. And I thought I'd just add it in anyway. So basically, the process is we're going to prepare for Mixdown in this video, then we're going to do a rough mix, and then we're going to go a bit more in depth and add EQ, compression, and other effects before adding automation in the final video. Now, preparation for Mixdown is something that I think a lot of people neglect. A lot of people just jump straight into the Mixdown after they've arranged their track. I don't like to do that. I like to prepare beforehand so that the mixdown process is just a lot easier. Now, when preparing for a mixdown, there's a few things to keep in mind. First of all, you should have section markers laid out. And we've done that here. We've got, intro, section 1, breakdown, and bridge. And the reason for this is because when you're mixing down, you want to be able to switch between sections of your track quickly. So you might be working on the chorus, and you might think, well, I've adjusted this, I just want to check how it sounds in section 1. And you want to be able to do that as quickly as possible. The other thing that you should do before mixing down is color and name your tracks. Color especially, our eyes respond quicker to color than words. So if you follow a color scheme with every single song you make, you'll get used to it. I know intuitively that blue is drums, orange is bass, and synths are green, and effects are purple. That's the way I do it. You might do it differently, but being able to visually see what's what helps a lot in the mixdown process, instead of having to go in, zoom in, check the name of things, and that kind of stuff. And another thing that I like to do in preparation for mixdown is group the tracks like we've done here. You don't have to do this, but it does help a lot in terms of organizing and in Ableton, seeing the project from a bird's eye view, what's going on, where, and so on. Now, the final thing I like to do in preparation for Mixdown is pull all the faders to zero, minus infinity decibels, and remove all the effects that aren't part of the composition. So we're going to do that now. I'm going to start by pulling the kick down to 0. Unfortunately, you can only do this by group, but you can shift click channels and pull them down. So now we've got no drums. Do the same with the bass. And a sub bass. And a synths. And the effects. And now we've got nothing playing. No sound at all. Now, why would you do this? Why are you undoing the work that you've already done? The reason is because when you're composing and structuring, you don't pay that much attention to fader levels. You just don't. And by doing this, we're pulling all the levels back down so that we can do a rough mix, pushing them up one by one, listening to them in relation to everything else, and we just generally get a much better mix. Now, one thing I should have mentioned is before even doing that, you should save. You should save your live set as a new version. I've already done this, but what you want to do is save your live set as your song before it's mixed, and then save another live set as your song mixed. And you're going to be doing the mix down in the song mixed project. The reason for that is because sometimes when you're mixing, you can actually make the song worse. And sometimes you think, well, if only I could go back to that time where it wasn't mixed, it sounded a lot better there. And you can do that if you save two projects, so make sure to do that. The other thing is, when you do that, you can actually compare your mixed track to the non-mixed one to objectively see whether it's better or not. But like I said, I've already done that. I do encourage you to do that though, even before preparing for Mixdown. And the final thing I'm going to do before moving on to the rough mix is just remove all the EQ and effects that have been added sort of on a whim when making the loop. The things I won't remove are things that are fundamental to the actual sound or idea. So in this case with the open hi-hat, this delay is going to stay there because it's being used creatively. But with other things such as this open hi-hat, this reverb can go. And what I'm going to do is just disable them. And I'm not going to delete them. The reason why is because I do want to add, for example, in this case with the open hi-hat, the second one, I want to add reverb to it. I know that, but I want to be able to A/B test or compare the two to make sure that the reverb I'm adding in the mixdown stage does sound a lot better than the one I've initially added. Because sometimes you'll find that the effects you've initially added actually work. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave them just muted. And by doing that, I'm pretty sure you use up a bit more CPU power. So it can be a wise idea to delete them. But in this case, my laptop can probably handle it. At least I hope so. So I'm going to leave them on. The other thing that's worth doing as well is actually minimizing them like that, because when you're adding EQ in the mixdown stage, you're going to be looking at that and you're going to be using it as a sort of baseline or foundation to EQ from. And the problem with that is that you're looking at what's already been done rather than listening to what is. So by minimizing that and then adding EQ, you can do it based on how the sound actually sounds, and then you can unminimize this and compare and A/B them. That's what I'm actually going to do. I'm just not going to do it in this video because it will take too long. And we're done. So what I've just done is I've pulled all the levels down to their lowest point of silence, and I've deactivated all the effects or the EQs on each channel. So at the moment everything's completely raw. There's no EQ going on, there's no compression. The only thing I have left on is that delay on the open hi-hat, and I might even change that. It's worth doing the same on the synth sounds and bass sounds as well. But I like to do them individually, which I'll do in the rough mix. So in the next video, what we're going to do is start mixing, starting with the faders only, not adding any EQ, compression, delay or reverb, just starting with the faders. So I'll see you then.